back, listeners, to the BizBlend, the podcast where business meets boldness and ideas are brewed into action in just 20 minutes. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and listeners, today's episode is all about branding in 2025. And we are not just talking about color palettes and taglines and hashtags and all that stuff. We are diving deep into identity, trust, and how authenticity scales in an AI first world. And listeners, joining me is Remso Martinez, founder of Marketer on the Run LLC, a veteran and Latino owned agency out of Henderson, Nevada. Now, he's the fractional CMO behind some of today's fastest growing platforms and also a storyteller who's turned six figure audiences into loyal communities. So, from his college dorm podcasting days to helping global nonprofits and political campaigns, Remso's journey, listeners, is a proof that branding it isn't built overnight. It's not based on just viral campaigns or videos, but it can be built without selling out. So, if you have ever wondered or thought whether your brand is built to last or just built to post, then buckle up because this is the episode for you. So, Remzo, welcome to the show, and I am so pumped up and excited for this conversation.
You're so lovely. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on today. I'm really excited to get to talk about this because in many ways, it's a really fundamental idea of, how you're going to set up your brand and how you're going to establish your brand identity within your company or your organization, but especially in terms of how your customers see you. But I feel like this year, especially with all the stuff going on with AI and everything else, as you mentioned, it's become lost on a lot of people, and I think it's really important to get back to basics.
Absolutely. I love that getting back to basics because that's what sustains you. That's that's one of the pillars behind longevity of anything. Great. So, Remzo, let's address the elephant in the room. I mean, what does branding truly mean in 2025? Beyond all the visuals and the logos and the taglines out there.
So let's go ahead and break it down in 3 phases. You've got phase 1. You have the fact that we have so many great consumer, accessible technologies out there, from voice cloning to AI prompted, content to all these crazy AI generated videos. You can't really go on your Instagram these days without seeing something that looks pretty heavily produced. But, for those out there like you and I who know what apps to use and what services they're probably using. It seems like in some ways the whole world has become cheapened, especially in the United States where we're getting just bombarded with all these types of content from Europe and parts of Asia and even North Africa. Because the language barrier in many ways has also been taken down, which is great for global commerce. But you have that happening. The fact that anyone now can go ahead, grab these tools, which in some cases are free or extremely affordable, and they can go ahead and jump on that. The third part is that you have a lot of large corporations, whether it's in food and beverage or technology or clothing brands, you name it. I would call them the institutional marketers have gotten probably the last of the table on this. You would probably think that the people who are doing this full time for multi-million dollar companies would be the first ones to really lead on this, but they haven't. And because of that, they seem old, they seem stale, they don't really want to change. And when you're trying to bring in a new level of consumers, whether they're younger, whether they're from a different economic background, people notice that and they don't want to feel like you're left out of the interest in the conversations that they're having. And third, everyone can go ahead and use these things and take advantage of the fact that large brands are falling behind. And this brings us to our third point, which is the focus of a lot of products and services. As far as what I'm seeing online right now, it's not focused on the customer. It's not focused on what solves problems. It's not focused on what makes life easier. You have a lot of folks that are selling personal brands, and what that does is that confuses the buyer journey. People don't see themselves in people as much. People want to see themselves as the hero of their own journey and solve their own problems with the products and services that you offer. I think a lot of businesses and a lot of entrepreneurs made themselves the hero in the client journey instead of making the client the hero in the client journey. And with that, it gets confused too because you got a lot of folks, and I believe this too. People trust people over brands. However, that doesn't mean that brands don't matter. And that's where we kind of find ourselves today. It's that we've got a lot of great stuff out there, which is really even the playing field. But in many ways, it means that everyone's more of the same. We have companies that aren't keeping up with the pace, and they're falling behind, and they're seemingly, out of fashion. And then you have a lot of folks that are trying to build business brands, but they're building it almost entirely around themselves, and they're not keeping the customer in mind. So that's kind of like where we're at today. And I think that, whenever you have massive industry changes, this type of thing happens, and then you have kind of a course correction. But it's like what we spoke about a moment ago. Getting back to basics, while for some people might seem elementary, it's the most important thing you can do if you want to compete long term. You don't want to just be a flash in the pan, and you want to grow, and you want to ultimately do what I think is the best thing to do as an entrepreneur, which is make people's lives better.
Absolutely. And that's the most basic out there, whether it's branding, marketing, or even running a company, running a business. It can could be the most basic thing which kind of has been unfortunately missing. So Rimzo, as you mentioned about that, it's now more about the person or the people who are the face of the brand, who or is representing the company in there. Does social media have to do anything or everything with that? I mean, how exactly that person is kind of building their online presence, their online persona, how people are perceiving them, and then kind of making the decisions based on that perception?
So to kind of give you some context, I'm 30 years old. I'm a millennial. I grew up in the South in the United States, and as far as a lot of the toxicity of consumer culture that we typically hear about online and in media, it's my generation that really gets inundated by it. My generation is what created the influencer. You see, we used to grow up with movie stars and celebrities. Now we've got YouTubers and content creators, and the influencer has kind of got in the middle of that. And because of influencers gaining a massive audience, they've been afforded great business opportunities. You could think of, Mr. Beast as a big example, and probably, the younger folks out there could probably name like 5, 10, 20, 100 other people who have built an online presence and use that to start a business. And I think at some point we got confused by that. Much like how in traditional advertising, for brands that were weaker or for brands that were not resonating with their target audience, what did they do back then, and they still do it now? They go ahead and they reach out to some celebrity or some sports figure or someone who has a certain audience, who is favorable, who has kind of a personal brand of their own, and what they do is they lend credibility to the other company. I saw a great example. We have a comedian in the United States named Shane Gillis. Shane Gillis is very popular amongst middle-aged men, particularly millennials, for example. So he skews younger in his audience, and he's typically more right of center. He's got more of what I would call like a college humor. But what did he do recently? He went ahead and did an ad for the alcohol company Bud Light. Bud Light, without getting into the politics of it, really alienated a lot of their adult male base over the last 2 years. They took certain political stances and did certain campaigns, which made people not want to purchase Bud Light anymore. In fact, in Walmart and Costco's throughout America, you had businesses basically like trying to give out Bud Light for free. So, it was just in the trash in terms of their brand. So what did they do over the past year and a half? What to rebound and try and, restore shareholder confidence in Anheuser-Busch and increase their stock? They had to do a big course correction. So what they did was they took somebody with a strong personal brand, Shane Gillis, they put him in a commercial, which is a very funny commercial, which people could find on YouTube, and
Mhm.
it looked more like old traditional Bud Light. So there's an example of somebody using a personal brand to help a larger brand. But where does this lose focus? back to what I was saying about influencers, you have a lot of folks on social media that have made the businesses or the products or the services all about them. Yes, they talk about how if you buy this, X will happen. If you buy that, Y will happen because it worked for me. But what you've lost in that case is a lot of the, institutional support that you get when you have a big brand. Because the reason why we buy from big companies is because big
Mhm.
companies have assurances. Because if you're going to grow in scale and speed and reputation, that means you're pretty good at what you're doing. It's not just one person. So, what does my generation do? My generation, who has been always marketed, advertised at, just looks at what we're getting targeted with, and we tried to mirror it. And I think for a lot of business owners, regardless of age or demographic, they tried to take on this persona of look at me, be exactly like me, buy my stuff. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's a social media issue. I don't think it's a content or advertising issue. I think we just lost focus on what's important. And I was I was somebody who did this incorrectly too for very long. And it wasn't until I solved the problem that I started actually getting more clients, scaling my revenue, and ultimately helping people do better with the things that they needed help with. So, uh, you know, in doing so, I had to go ahead and step back when I was just me and my company. It was all about me. I had to focus on what does my customer want. So in this case, I had to remove myself from a lot of the marketing where I was the face of it. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to focus on the storytelling. Donald Miller, who's known for his story brand method, breaks it down like this. You are the guide. So, for Star Wars fans out there, you're the Obi-Wan Kenobi and the client is Luke Skywalker. And Darth Vader is the big scary challenge that they have to go ahead and fight. And along the way, they make friends, Chewie and Han Solo. And the idea is that you corral a bunch of people who are going to support the hero, so the hero can go ahead and solve their problem. Now, how does this go ahead and apply to my marketing agency, Marketer on the Run? Well, I stopped talking about how great I was and how I built all these brands and how I made all this money and how I helped people make money and all the celebrity clients I had. I had to get very basic and I had to remember nobody just cares about Remso Martinez. They have an immediate problem that needs to be solved and they need someone to solve it. I said this to about a 17-year-old kid a couple weeks ago. He asked me, how do you become successful? And I said, what you do is you solve big problems for big people and you'll always be in work. So in this case, a lot of my branding now for Marketer on the Run is focused on, hey, you have a problem. You have a website that looks like trash. It's not performing. It's not indexing. You're being searched on Google in a efficient way. This is the product that you need. You need to go ahead and pay for our web design and management services, and you will go ahead and have the best website in your town. Or you need podcast bookings or public relations support for your business, so that way you can scale your reputation, grow your brand, and meet more people. It's never about me. It's not about what I do. It's about how the things that they need to get done can get done if they go ahead and buy my product or service because it will help them achieve the goal that they want. So, that's just a very basic thing. But even as a new business owner, while I knew that, and as a professional marketer of more than a decade, I definitely knew that. There was that scarcity mindset where it was like, I need people just to like me in order to go ahead and buy my stuff. So I thought that my business brand and my personal brand were one and the same. But quickly, I had to go ahead and separate the two. So right now, what I just did was I laid out the business brand, which is the business is the guide, the client is the story, much in that Donald Miller model. Now, why do I still focus on my personal brand? I think a personal brand complements a corporate brand and vice versa, because once they go ahead and buy into how my solution impacts them, they now get more curious. I think a lot of your Western consumers are a lot more curious now. We focus on, the impact, whether it's a charitable impact or environmental impact, or whether it's a economic impact. What makes me different? What is my why? Because now they know that I could solve their problem, but maybe there's somebody else who could solve their problem just like me. What makes me different? That's why I have to separate my personal brand from my business brand, but I don't stop working on either. I work on both of them because at the end of the day, if they could buy into the solution that your business brand is promising, but they understand and they know who is the person behind it, And the why, the reason why they do it, the reason why I do this is to help business owners and content creators and entrepreneurs soar to more heights. So I want to help them solve their problems so they can help more people in what they do. Those things aren't opposites. They're hand in hand. They're yin and yang. And when you blur the lines between the two, it confuses the customer. Never confuse the customer.
That's a golden. Never confuse customer. And as you mentioned about confuse, another it's kind of emotional driven, sentimental driven marketing that comes to my mind is the FOMO, I think it's now becoming more and more relevant in the younger generations. You know, I think this year we have such a striking example. I mean, it's everywhere. Everybody's talking about it. Some kind of, I'm just not going to take the name, but some kind of doll. It's everywhere. You know, if you're not buying it, um, you are out of trend. You are outdated. I mean, it's something like, it's definitely creating a FOMO, not in the younger generations, but also in millennials as well. So I just want to ask you, Remso, does FOMO work every time, when let's say a newer brand is trying to penetrate um, specifically a younger demographic out there? Because, mostly the purchase power or the capacity, it's more with the millennials and then driven by the younger generations as well. So what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I would rephrase the question as does FOMO work? And I would, twist it, I'd say, when has FOMO not worked?
Uh,
It goes back to what we were saying about having story driven marketing. It doesn't matter how or who. What matters is the place that you put the customer in and what you're basically telling them what to do. You want to go from Y to X, here's how you do it. I know the dolls that you're talking about, or at least I hope that I know. They're called the Labubus or whatever. It reminds me, oh my gosh, it reminds me of Tamagotchis from the '90s, the little video game keychains that you had to feed or else it would die. But more likely, it reminds me of Beanie Babies. I mean, Beanie Babies in the early 2000s, people were going to court over those. Couples in the U.S. were getting divorced, and instead of fighting over who had custody of the children, they were trying to find who had custody over the Beanie Baby collection. But I mean, when we really look at what is happening, and I mean, I've seen these things, they're just, in my humble opinion, they're just plastic trash that waste money. Um, what are they really selling in this? And who are they really targeting? What's funny is you would think it would target children, but the thing is that children don't have money. Who are they targeting? They're targeting
yeah.
teenage to middle-aged adult women. And it's just become this craze that you have to go ahead and collect these things and you have to go ahead and collect the attachments and the accessories. So what they did was they skipped a generation. It's like the kids are always, gonna lose focus. So instead of going ahead and focusing on something for children for a few months, we can go ahead and stretch a year out to really get a deep consumer market of people with disposable income. And I would argue in the US, our disposable income is becoming less and less. So ladies, I don't think you should go out and buy this stuff. However, it's if you don't have this, you're missing out. How many things can we think of in life? And I fall to this. I'm a watch collector. If you don't have this watch, people are going to notice. If you don't have this watch, they're going to think that you're not rich. If you don't have this watch, they're going to think you're out of fashion. It's like that with everything else. The harshest thing anyone ever told me was that, for a marketer, I'm in the business of insecurity, which is why I intentionally don't market products or services that I think make people insecure. If anything, I think as a business community, while definitely FOMO works, we have to think of FOMO for the right reasons. I work with companies that try and help people do better with their finances. I work with companies that try and help people with their fitness or their mental health. And I want them to feel left out because I know that the products and services that my clients work in help people. So,
Mm,
do I think there's anything morally wrong with, buying these little plastic dolls? Not at all. And I could say the same thing for alcohol or for, in the United States, prescription medications. I mean, I live in Las Vegas, for example, like gambling's a big thing. So I think we
Mm.
just need to get very intentional as entrepreneurs, as small and mid-sized business owners. FOMO is great. FOMO is a tool, but what are we making people feel like they're left out about? Something that's better for them because we want better for them, or something that we want them to have because if they don't have it, they're gonna feel worse about themselves. I think we stop thinking about people. And like I said earlier, when we were talking about personal brands taking over business brands and becoming too focused on the business owner or the face of the company, we forgot about the clients. And if we just took back for a moment and thought, how is this benefiting our clients? How is this making our customers' lives better? We wouldn't sacrifice money. We wouldn't sacrifice attention or space. I think we could make more money. I think we could grow our brand, and I think we can improve people's lives at the same time. I don't think it has to be an either or situation.
That's a very interesting flipping of this concept. I really love that, Revzo, and also a bit of a personal question. I mean, how has your experience as a veteran and also a Latino entrepreneur shaped your branding philosophy? And do you think that representation is now a brand value in itself?
I worked, and you mentioned this in the introduction. I worked in politics for a while, and the big thing I noticed is that what happens on the internet stays on the internet forever. I make no apologies. I'm proud of my country. I'm proud to be a business owner. I'm very pro-capitalist. I know that there's a lot of people that criticize capitalism, and I agree, capitalism is flawed. But of all the economic models out there, I think that capitalism is the best of any economic model that man has ever made, and that capitalism has raised more people out of poverty and raised people into opportunity everywhere it's been allowed to flourish. So I make no qualms about that. My brand has always been, I want to work with people, and I want people to work with me based off my merit, based off my character. And it's very funny. I never used to. I don't really abide to a lot of identity politics principles, but I take it in a different way. I used to never say I was a Latino-owned business. The main reason why is because in the United States, I thought that if I was, for people meeting me, and it's why I didn't call my agency the Remso Martinez marketing agency. I went with Marketer on the Run, was because if I felt like if somebody heard my name or something, they would think, "Oh, he's a Latino, he's 50% off already, or he only works with other people." But what I quickly found, and I see this living in a multicultural family, to give you some context, my mother is from Seoul, Korea, and my father is from San Juan, Puerto Rico. So I come from, two ends of the earth, and I'm proud to be an American. Um, I wanted people to understand it's like, yeah, I, Latinos come in all shapes and sizes, and we do a lot of different things, and I'm proud of my heritage, and I'm proud to be a Martinez, and I am proud to help other people who may be looked in a different way, whether it be, oh, they're cheaper, or oh, they'll work more for less, or what have you. I want them to associate the name Martinez not with somebody who's mowing your lawn, but with somebody who is helping build a reputation of excellence and is helping build a giant brands that will be known throughout the world. So I did it not to pander. I did not do it to get sympathy points. I do not want people to hire me or my agency because we are just Latino, but I want people to begin to, elevate ourselves as individuals. So I think that's definitely played a role, and it was something I shied away from for a while. But I'm proud. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of where my family's from. I run a business in one of the greatest cities in the world, and I'm gonna keep doing that and giving other people opportunity. I've employed a lot of women, not because I wanna hire a bunch of women, but because I've worked with a lot of fantastic women. I've worked with people, across the country and around the world, and, I think we need to focus on people, and we just need to be proud of who we are and do the best we can. In terms of, how being a veteran, plays into it, recently I went ahead and put veteran-owned business on my website because I used to shy away from that too. I was very, I thought I was being humble, but, I was almost like, "Oh, well, I don't want people to hire me because I'm just a veteran. I want them to hire me because I'm good." No, much like, why I say I'm a Latino-owned business now is because, much like saying it's a veteran-owned business, people know what veterans bring to the table, and I'm very pro hiring veterans. You know, we have thousands of American veterans that came back from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you had a lot of businesses saying that they were going to hire veterans. But what do you do for somebody who used to, you know, drive a tank and now they're driving a delivery truck? I mean, it's very different. I don't think a lot of veterans were treated well, um, and luckily, I think that that's changing in our culture. But you know, people know that when they hire a soldier or a marine or a sailor or an airman, coast guardsman, what have you, they know they're getting somebody that knows how to deal with a difficult situation, somebody who's orderly, who's disciplined, who has faced adverse challenges in their life, and they know that when you hire me, you're hiring someone that's going to complete the job and they're going to take responsibility for it. At the end of the day, as a soldier, what was my job? My job was to win. Was it always easy? No. Were there days where I'm like, it's not going to work out the way I think it's going to work out? Absolutely. But you need to know that when you hire somebody, whether they're making your sandwich at Subway or whether they're building your house, they're going to get the job done. People don't question that with veterans. So much like, you know, saying it's a Latino owned business, it's also a veteran owned business. I want to help grow and uphold the standards of the veterans community in the US. So those are two things I'm very proud of.
That is very, very inspiring, Remso. Very, very
Thank you.
inspiring. And I think that's just definitely kind of points towards, audiences asking not what do you sell, but who are you really? I mean, I think uh, what I also believe is, consumers, they are kind of connecting or gravitated towards values more than ever before. And this I can actually say because, when I look at the marketing industry, specifically with India, um, when we were fresh, we got our independence in 1947. That was the time that, not only the incumbent, but the citizens, the people of India, we all were kind of in a nation building activity. So even the brands, their advertisements, they were all focused on the, common man or the common person who is trying to take care of their family, trying to contribute in building the nation. So there was a lot of sentimental value attached to it, and I'll tell you, Remso, because I'm also a millennial. So these advertisements, they had such a relatable jingle, tagline, beautiful advertisements, human advertisements, simple yet so much of retention. I still remember those jingles. Still to this point of time when I meet with my friends, we all sing those jingles. We keep on watching them on YouTube and we kind of have energy attached to it. And that value, that emotion, that, this was the time when even the companies, they were built on specific values which are nation first. So yeah, I mean, it's more about connecting with the values. That's what.
Yeah, two of my favorite brands, you know, I love their advertising because they evoke that as well. Like, you know, I'm big on nostalgia, but you know, I'm also just as keen to jump on brands that make you aspire to do more. Like, you know, um, I'm a big watch collector, as I mentioned earlier, and I think I was largely marketed to because I was a movie fan and you know, serving in the military too. I was a big James Bond fan. Who were James Bond's, you know, favorite watch brands, Rolex and Omega. So it created this fantasy capturing of, you know, the masculine mind in the West, where it was like, well, James Bond wears Omega, so Omega is worn by tough guys. But you know who also wears Omega? People who can afford to wear an Omega. So if you want to be tough, you've got to be rich too to afford this watch. It's hilarious in a way because it keeps you kind of chasing this goal of wanting to do better so you could buy a piece of metal that tells time. But, you know, I love it and it falls into that realm with me. But, you know, nostalgia does too. My two favorite brands, before I got cut off on this tangent, are Ralph Lauren and Coca Cola. What do I love about Ralph Lauren? Ralph Lauren is timeless. Ralph Lauren looks good on your father, and Ralph Lauren looks good on you. Ralph Lauren is Americana. Ralph Lauren is reliable, and Ralph Lauren is never going to give you something that's not good quality, and it's for everybody. Yes, it's more expensive these days, but that's what they try and portray it as. It's expensive because it's good and it's timeless. And Coca-Cola for the same reason. I think when Coke succeeds where other beverage companies succeed is that they're not selling you carbonated flavored sugar water. They're selling you nostalgia of picnics, what you drank on your first date, what you had at the barbecue with your family, what you had with your friends in the back of a pickup the night you graduated from high school. Coke does not sell, soda, much like Ralph Lauren does not just sell clothes. What they're doing is they're selling you a part of your past so that you can carry on and share with other people. I think those are the brands that have not just established themselves as kings in their industry, but will always be able to pull people back because that's just one of those levers through a corporate brand that's timeless. People come and go. I can't tell you who the CEO of Coke is, but I can tell you that, 20 years from now, Coca-Cola will still be here. Ralph Lauren has not been inside Ralph Lauren in probably 10, 15 years, but even when he dies, Ralph Lauren, the company, will still be here.
Yeah. And this brings me to the concluding part of this conversation, Remso, legacy. So, uh, what do you want people to remember about your work? When the algorithms have moved on, the trends would have changed, AI would be now normalized and common. What would you want people to remember?
People won't remember the websites that I made. People won't remember the ad campaigns that I ran. They won't remember the discount I gave them. They won't remember all the cool things that I did. What they're gonna remember, and why I hope others remember, is that when they needed help, when they had a big challenge, I was there for them, and that I helped them build their businesses up so that they could go ahead and be of benefit to other people. There's a phrase that I learned in the military, which is servant leadership, which is, lead by example and inspire others and serve others the way that you wish to be served. And when we go ahead and focus on that, people won't remember whether or not I was the best marketer out there or whether I ran the best marketing agency out there. They'll remember I was their favorite. And I'd much rather be my client's favorite marketer than a marketer that ran a bunch of trophies that no one's going to remember, 100 years from now. I want to go ahead and set an example that other people will want in terms of how they treat those that they work within their business and with how they treat their customers. I think when we stop focusing on ourselves and we start focusing more on how we can serve others, that's not just good business, which it is, but it's a good way to live.
Impressive. Great, great. So finally, so if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what will be the best way?
Well, you can go ahead and find me on LinkedIn at Remso W. Martinez. I'm the only handsome Remso W. Martinez there. So go ahead and follow me and connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you all. And if you're interested in learning more about how, Marketer on the Run can help serve you and your clients, go ahead and learn more at marketerontherun.com. I don't just run, all the different services there, but I help teams through coaching and consulting, especially companies that want to build and grow their marketing department. I'd love to go ahead and help you build a Class A world known all star marketing team for your business if you want to go ahead and hit the ground running. Thank you so much again. I've really appreciated being on today.
Awesome. I'll make sure to have all the links and details in the show notes, Remzo. And I think we have explored a lot of branding wisdom today in these just few minutes. Um, of course, with the precision of a fractional CMO, and but also the soul, the spirit of a true storyteller. So thank you so much, Remzo.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So, listeners, what I believe is, freedom, truth, and identity, they're not just buzzwords, they are the blueprint for real growth. And yes, we ought to go back to basics. And if you are out there trying to build something meaningful, something that won't vanish with the next algorithm change, remember this: branding in 2025 is about connection, not perfection. It's not just about what your audience sees, it's about what they feel and remember. So, just refer to the show notes, listeners, to connect with Remso and follow his journey at Marketer on the Run LLC. And stay tuned because on BizBlend, we're always brewing up bold ideas to move your business forward. Until next time, blend wisely, build boldly. Thank you.